Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell here with my co-host Glenn Martin. And we got some news. We're trying to keep you guys up to date with the news as it trickles out. Little by little, the news is coming out from the NFL and things are inching closer. So Glenn, why don't you reel the news we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, well, there was a report that multiple high-level NFL executives are starting to get the feeling and get the belief that the preseason will be shortened from 4 games down to 2. So this got me and Jimmy thinking how that could affect how the playing time would be distributed, how that could affect late back end of the roster guys, how that could affect position battles, rookies. And so, yeah, we just wanted to get in here and talk a little bit about it because I know, Jimmy, you mentioned before the call that the NFL has stated there will be no joint practices, which the Ravens have been doing a lot of in recent years. And the coaches have stressed how those reps can be even more valuable than even preseason game reps for the ones and certainly for the young guys as well. So without that crutch to lean on the joint practices, now you're cutting the preseason games in half. What are your first thoughts when you hear this, Jimmy?
Yeah, you know what I thought of immediately? If you guys go back and take a look at our video with Evan the agent, it was really awesome. That was right after the combine, excuse me. And we talked about the effect of COVID on the draft. And one of the things he mentioned, he has the most players in the NFL as clients that weren't invited to the combine. So
yeah.
That a lot of those guys are those undrafted guys. Obviously, I don't know how many guys are getting drafted that aren't in the combine, but the chances are very low. So the reason that came to my mind was because one of the things he said was he tells his guys when they go into camp, you have to take Hall of Fame reps. Every rep has to be a Hall of Fame rep. And that stuck into my mind because reps to me is the key word. These guys need reps. They're not going to get reps. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, how are coaches going to get creative to give these guys reps? Because no joint practices, so no live action, right?
Yep.
And if you only got 2 preseason games, we're going to act on that assumption. I seriously doubt they're going to have a full preseason.
Right.
So, yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind. What is going to happen to get these guys reps and have a proper evaluation of them? And then how much has their chances of making the team diminished, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we pointed to is the continuity of this team coming back because there was a lot of significant contributors that were returning. And certainly on offense, outside of Marshall Yanda, there's not a whole ton of different guys that are going to be playing. So, except for, of course, the rookies. But, so I think that's a positive, but that also means you got to get those guys ready to play. Now you only have 2 games. Now last year they had 4 games. They chose to only play Lamar in those first 2 games. And I don't know if I think he got 1 series in the first game and 2 in the second or 3 in the second. Maybe he got to halftime in the second, but he didn't play at all in the third or the fourth. I have actually the attempt numbers. I couldn't find the snap counts from it, but Trace McSorley, if you look at it, got the ball out. I mean, this guy got a ton of reps. Joe Callahan got a good amount of reps, but clearly Trace McSorley led the quarterback room in total reps. How would they be able to divide the reps between Lamar, RG3, and Trace? And now you're throwing Huntley into the mix. If you want, your guy Huntley, if he wants any shot at making the roster, he's going to have to get a couple. I just don't know how they split it up just in the quarterback room, let alone, all the other position battles. With just 2 games, because you got to get your starters prepared. So they have to get some reps, I would think, unless you go the Rams route and just don't play any of your contributors throughout the entire preseason. It did seem to kind of be okay for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic. And like you said, there's kind of 2 pieces here. You have to think about every position battle, and you think about the young guys getting reps. And not just the undrafted guys. We're talking about low draft round picks as well. I mean, Geno, Prochet, everyone thinks he's a lock to get a lot of action this year.
Yeah.
Still a 6th-round pick, right? Like, at the end of the day, that carries with you until you overcome that label, right?
Yeah. I mean, you pointed to before the show that if Gus was a rookie this year, I don't know if he would make the team. And I know that, like, a guy like Bronson, Rick Steiner, was a big fan favorite when he got picked up as an undrafted guy. I mean, how much has his already long shot chances, any guy like him, have already diminished just hearing that the numbers may be cut in half?
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because this will have a residual effect on their entire career. This is their shot, right? So I agree with you. I think that if Steiner had a 2% chance, I think he has a 0.2% chance now. And you guys might blow me up for that. There are some of you that think he's better than Patrick Ricard, which to me is still insane. But I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah, Gus is a huge one. Speaking of Patrick Ricard, another undrafted guy. He came in as a defensive lineman.
Now he's a Pro Bowl fullback.
Right. So how many of those guys would have existed?
Michael Pierce. I mean, Bart Scott.
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. And if you think of low round guys, you think of Chuck Clark, 6th round pick, right? Matt Judon, 5th round pick. So these reps are crucial. Are there any guys on the undrafted, of the undrafted guys that we have that you just think of based on a 2-game scenario? I mean, you're already going to say no. Like, is their position too deep? Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think any corner that came, I don't know. I don't have the list of undrafted, but I think secondary is going to be really hard to break into. I mean, really, defense overall is going to be a hard spot for an undrafted guy. I'm trying to think of any of the open. I just don't see it. So I hope this isn't breaking their streak of undrafted guys making at least one making the roster, because that's kind of a cool thing that I think the Ravens use as a way to lure some of the more highly touted undrafted guys away from other teams and here with us. And I think it gives an inside track to a guy you mentioned in one of our previous videos, Charles Scarf. It gets him an inside track to that tight end position, because those young undrafted guys aren't going to get a ton of reps, you'd think. But let me ask you this. I mean, are you concerned with if they go the route of not playing any of their big contributors at all in those first 2 preseason games? Does that concern you that they would then get to a slow start and then there could be a stumble in week 1?
I think this might be opposite to a lot of other people's logic, where they say if they're vets, I'm not worried about it. To me, actually, a lot of times I feel like vets need a little bit more runway to get going and knock the rust off, right? There haven't been live action bullets for a long time. But when you're young, you're resilient. You can get up any day of the week and eat whatever you want and then play whatever you want, right? Like you can back to backs and not be sore and things like that. So to me, I'm not crazy concerned about 2 reasons. 1, we're relatively young as a team, especially as an offense. 2, like you said, the continuity as far as the coaching staff and the personnel is there. Yep. So I don't actually want to see Lamar in the preseason if it's 2 games. In fact, even last year, I felt like every time he was in the preseason, it was like I was, holding my breath, because I would, you know what I mean? I hate for him to get taken out in the preseason because some undrafted guy is out there to prove himself.
Right. But I guess what we could see is, so like when you look at the offensive line unit, I think everything that I ever hear in the preseason and training camp is continuity. Well, how can they build continuity, but at the same time give everyone a chance to give a shot at that inside spot, one of those inside 3 spots, when it kind of looks like it's kind of an open competition for all 3 of those positions?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's quite the conundrum that they're in there. I wonder if there's any flexibility in the number of like overall practices instead of the preseason games, or like padded practices. I know that vets aren't like fans of padded practices, but at this point, you're sacrificing those 2 games only, exclusive to this year to make sure you get the reps. And it could almost be seen as like not just a strategy thing, but a safety thing, right? Like,
yeah.
Once again, it takes time to ramp up.
They say you have to callous the body for football.
Right, do you remember when they tried the towel boy and water boy?
Oh yeah. And he just got destroyed.
I think of, right? It's like, you can't take a regular human, even if they're lifting weights, and just say, here, go play football.
Right. Yeah.
To be some ramp up time. So, I'm interested to see what happens there. But I also wonder, like you talked about a couple corners you talked about the secondary being a position where their chances are virtually 0 because we're so deep there.
Yeah.
But I really wonder, you brought up at the beginning, what's going to happen in this quarterback battle, right? You got McSorley, you got RG in the 2nd year of his 2-year deal, and you got Huntley, who, of the 3, I hate to say it, but it's probably the best system fit right now. but he's the most unproven. So what do you do there to figure this out?
I think when you're in a win now mode, it's probably unfortunately going to be Huntley as the odd man out, and maybe they can get him on the practice squad. Maybe they want to use one of their spots for another quarterback. But yeah, I don't know how he makes the team when McSorley and RG3 already know the system. It's just much easier and much more comforting feeling knowing that those guys already know the job. So I think unfortunately Huntley's one of those guys it's going to be just an unfortunate time. They picked a bad time to become a rookie in the NFL, and obviously through no fault of their own, just bad circumstances. And I think it's going to – you mentioned how it sets you up for your whole career. I mean, that first, it's big time because next year there's a whole nother wave of rookies. Like, I hope people understand that it's not like they can just put this off and, they'll get a shot next camp. No, there's a whole nother wave of young guys who want to, pursue their dreams. So it's just a numbers game. So it's kind of unfortunate how it worked out for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's also unfortunate that my projection is probably going to be wrong. If you remember in our quarterback position one, I projected. Oh no, you backed me off of it.
Did I?
You I think you backed me off of it. Yeah.
The Huntley one?
Or I was on that train, huh? I was on it, then off it, and then back on it. I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Huntley does have the most system fit, just because of his athleticism and stuff. But RG3 is such a great backup. It takes such pride in being a good scout team quarterback. And they just drafted McSorley, right? I mean, wasn't he like a 6th-round pick or something like that?
Yeah.
So I don't see him going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, you guys let us know what you think. I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting, but I believe in the Ravens coaching staff. And look, John Harbaugh, coaching is in his blood. He has thought about – he's overly paranoid. He's been running over scenarios over and over and over. He's got a plan A through Z. So if anybody can I think it's the Ravens staff. But you guys let us know what you think. This is the question that we posed to you. Are there any undrafted guys that you thought were going to make the team that probably won't now based on the circumstances? And how do you see them getting reps for these young guys and undrafted guys to properly evaluate them? Let us know what you think. Guys, hit the subscribe button. It's probably right around Lamar's head somewhere. Go ahead and do that so we can keep putting these videos out. We hope you guys get a value out of it, as much out of it as we do. And we'll be back soon.
See you.